Greetings and salutations, travelers, and welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads. The following is a fan-based reading of the rulebook for the Pathfinder 2nd Edition playtest. All rights reserved to Paizo and any other proper legal owners. Thank you. Chapter 1. Character Creation. When you sit down to play Pathfinder as a player, the first thing you need to do is create a character whose adventures you'll explore in the game. It's up to you to imagine your character's past experiences, personality, and worldview, as these will set the stage for your role-playing during the game. You'll use the game's mechanics to determine your character's starting capabilities at various tasks, and the special abilities she can use during the game. This section provides a step-by-step guide for creating a character using the Pathfinder rules. These steps are presented in a suggested order, but you should feel free to complete them in the order you prefer. In some cases, where the rules systems involved in the following steps need more explanation, they refer to sections that appear later in this chapter. Many of the steps below instruct you to fill out fields on your character sheet, see below, but note that the chapter sheet is arranged for ease of use during gameplay rather than the order of steps in character creation. Additionally, the fields that appear on character sheets are comprehensive, and not all characters necessarily have something to put in each field. All characters might not have access to a reaction at first level, for example. If a field on your character sheet is not applicable to your character, just leave that field blank. Each step of character creation detailed on the following pages is marked with a corresponding number on the sample character sheet below to show you where to fill in information on the appropriate field. Each step of character creation detailed on the following pages is marked with a corresponding number on the sample character sheet below to show you where to fill in information in the appropriate field. Fields that need to be filled in on the second or third page of the sheet are called out in the text. If you're creating a higher level character, it's a good idea to begin with these instructions before progressing to page 278 for instructions on leveling up your characters. At this point, the print book displays a sample character sheet with numbers spread across indicating where to fill in at each step. 1. Determine your character's concept. What sort of hero do you want to play? The answer to this question might be as simple as a brave warrior, or as complicated as the child of elven wanderers who raised this character in a majority human city devoted to Serenray, the Dawnflower, and goddess of the sun. During this step, it's a good idea to decide the general thrust of your character's personality, sketching out a few details about her past and thinking about how and why she adventures. You'll likely want to peruse Pathfinder's available ancestries, backgrounds, and classes. The tables on page 13 might also help you match your concept with some basic rules elements. Below are a number of ways you could approach creating your character concept. Once you have a good idea of the type of character you'd like to play, move on to step 2. Ancestry, background, class, or details. If one of Pathfinder's character ancestries, backgrounds, or classes particularly intrigues you, it's easy to build a character concept around one or more of these options. Table 1-1 Ancestries and Table 1-2 Classes on page 13 give a brief overview of each option, with much more detail provided in Chapter 2 and 3, respectively. Additionally, the game has a large number of backgrounds to choose from that represent your character's upbringing, her family's livelihood, or her earliest profession. Backgrounds are detailed later in Chapter 2, beginning on page 38. Building a character around a specific ancestry, background, or class can be a fun exercise in interacting with the world's lore. You might consider whether you'd like to build a typical member of your character's ancestry or class, as described in the relevant entry, or whether you'd prefer to play a character who defies commonly held notions about her people. For example, you could play a dwarf with a wide-eyed sense of wondrous innocence and a zest for change, or a performing rogue capable of amazing acrobatic feats, but with little interest in sneaking about. Of course, you can always build a concept from any aspect of a character's details. You can use role-playing to challenge not only the norms of Pathfinder's fictional world, but also real-life social norms. Your character might challenge binary gender notions, explore cultural identity, have a disability, have any sexual orientation, or any combination of these suggestions. Your character can live any life you see fit. After you've figured out your character's concept and background, you can have some fun coming up with an appropriate name for your character. Faith. Perhaps you'd like to play a character who is a devout believer in the faith of a specific deity. Pathfinder is a rich world full of myriad deities whose faiths and philosophies span a wide range, from Caden Kalian, the drunken hero of good-hearted adventuring, to Desna, the song of the spheres and goddess of dreaming and the stars, to Iomade, the inheritor, goddess of honor, justice, and rulership. A full list of Pathfinder's major deities is on page 288. Your character might be so drawn to a particular faith that you decide she should be a cleric or paladin of that deity, or your character might instead simply be the child of strongly devoted parishioners, or a lay worshipper who applies her faith's teachings to daily life. Your allies. Before a game begins, it's always a good idea to have the players discuss how their characters might know each other and work together throughout the course of their adventures. You might even want to coordinate with the other players when forming your character concept, although you should never feel pressured into making and playing a character that doesn't interest you. Such coordination might involve your characters' backstories, such as having them hail from the same village or creating characters who are relatives. It might also involve mechanical aspects, such as creating characters whose abilities in combat complement each other. In the latter case, it may be helpful for a party to include characters who deal damage, characters who can absorb damage, and characters who can provide healing. However, Pathfinder's classes include a lot of choices, and there are many options for building each type of character, so don't let these broad categories restrain your decisions. Ability scores. One of the simplest places to start your character concept is with their ability scores. Do you want your character to be the fastest, the smartest, or the most charming? Then enhance your character's dexterity, intelligence, or charisma score accordingly. See the ability score section on page 18 for more about which ability scores are tied to which inherent qualities. When you build a character around having one or more strong ability scores, choose a class that has one of those as the key ability score. You may also want to choose an ancestry and a background that also boost that score. But you can always use your free ability boost if they don't line up. When it comes time to assign your skill proficiencies, pick skills tied to your best abilities. Once you've developed your character's concept, jot a few sentences summarizing it under the Notes section on the 3rd page. Record any of the details you've already decided, such as your character's name, on the appropriate lines on the 1st page, indicated on the sample character sheet by the number 1. 2. Choose an ancestry. Your character's ancestry is one of her most important characteristics. Table 1-1, Ancestries, on page 13, provides an overview of Pathfinder's core ancestry options, and each ancestry is fully detailed in Chapter 2. Ancestry affects your character's ability scores, total hit points, size, speed, languages, and much more. Additionally, at 1st level, your character receives an ancestry feat that represents an ability or quality she was born with or trained in at an early age. Write your character's ancestry on the appropriate line at the top of your character sheet. Next to your ability scores, note the ability boosts and any flaw your character gains from her ancestry. Ability scores are finalized during Step 5. Finally, note the number of hit points she gains from her ancestry. On the appropriate lines, note your character's size, speed, and languages. If your character's ancestry provides her with special abilities, note them in the appropriate spaces, such as dark vision in the senses section on the first page. Note the ancestry feat your character receives in the proper section on your character sheet's second page. 3. Choose a background. Your character's background might represent a special aptitude she's been honing since her youth, detail her upbringing, or illuminate some other aspect of her life before she became an adventurer. The available character backgrounds are described beginning on page 38. Backgrounds typically provide benefits to your character in the form of 2 ability boosts, one that can be applied to either of 2 specific ability scores, and one that is free, training in a lore skill and a specific skill feat. Record your character's background on the appropriate line on your character sheet. Next to your ability scores, note the ability boosts the background provides. Ability scores are finalized during Step 5. Record the skill feat the background provides in the proper section on your character sheet's second page. On the first page, in the Skills section, note the lore skill in which your character is trained by checking the T box next to that skill name and noting the type of lore. 4. Choose a class. At this point, you need to nail down your character's class. This affords her access to a suite of heroic abilities, determines how well she can attack, and governs how easily she can shake off or avoid certain harmful effects. Chapter 3 details each of the classes available in Pathfinder, and Table 1-2, Classes, on page 13, provides an overview of each class and tells you which ability scores are important when playing that class, which can help guide your choice. You don't need to note all of your character's class features yet. You simply need to know which class you want to play, which determines the ability scores that will be most important for your character. Write your character's class at the top of your character sheet, then write 1 in the box after it to indicate that you're first level. Next to your ability scores, note the class's key ability score and the ability boost to it that the class provides. Don't worry about recording the rest of your character's class features and abilities yet. You'll handle that in Step 6. 5. Finalize your ability scores. Now that you've made the main mechanical choices about your character, it's time to finalize her ability scores. These important statistics determine a wide array of your character's capabilities and consist of 6 values: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. As noted on other steps, your character's ancestry, background, and class all affect her ability scores. To learn how to calculate your ability scores, see page 19. That section also tells you how to determine your ability modifiers, which affect the calculation of many of the values on your character sheet, as described later in this section. Once you've used the ability scores section on page 19 to calculate your character's ability scores, record them in the Score boxes in the proper section on your character sheet's first page. Use the ability modifiers table on page 20. Write your character's modifiers in this section too. 6. Apply your class. Now, record all the benefits and class features that your character receives from the class you've chosen. Your character's class determines her key ability score, affects her total hit points, outfits her with various initial proficiencies, provides her with signature skills, and grants her class features and feats. To determine your character's total starting hit points, add together the number of hit points she gains from her ancestry, noted in Step 2, and the number of hit points she gains from her class. Now is a good time to note the T, E, M, and L fields that appear throughout your character sheet, standing for Trained, Expert, Master, and Legendary respectively. These fields indicate your character's proficiency and determine which modifiers your character applies to rolls and DCs when using certain mechanics. For example, if your character has a rank of Trained in a given skill or ability, her modifier to roll when using that skill or ability is equal to her level. For more about proficiencies, see page 290. Note your character's key ability score on your character sheet, as well as her class DC, which is equal to 10 plus her key ability modifier plus her level, in this case 1. Note her total starting hit points as well. Use the proficiency fields on your character sheet to note your character's initial proficiencies, including your character's proficiency ranks in perception and saving throws. Record your character's weapon proficiencies in the appropriate section on the first page and her armor proficiencies in the armor proficiencies section. Don't worry yet about finalizing any values for your character's AC, TAC, or strikes. You'll handle that in Step 9. Indicate which skills are your character's signature skills and choose which skills your character is trained in, but don't worry about finalizing the total modifiers of your skills either. You'll handle that in the next step. 7. Determine skill modifiers. Now that you've noted which skills are signature skills for your character and decided which skills she's trained in, it's time to calculate her skill modifiers. In the second box to the right of each skill name on your character sheet, there's an abbreviation that reminds you about the ability score tied to that skill. When you attempt checks using a skill, add the indicated ability modifier to your proficiency modifier, if any, as well as any other applicable modifiers, bonuses, and penalties to determine the modifier for your check. Many uses of certain skills require you to have at least a proficiency rank of trained in those skills, as further described in Chapter 4. Fill the relevant ability modifier in the box to the right of each skill name. Then, for skills in which you are trained, add your proficiency modifier to your ability modifier to determine the modifier your character has for each skill roll. For the rest of your character's skills, subtract the proficiency modifier for being untrained, your level -2, from the relevant ability modifier, and record those totals on the lines below the respective skill names. If you have any modifiers, bonuses, or penalties from feats or abilities, add them to the totals if they always apply, or note them next to the total if they apply only in certain circumstances. Chapter 8. Buy equipment. At first level, your character has 150 silver pieces, SP, to spend on armor, weapons, and other basic equipment. Armor and weapons are often the most important. Your character's class lists the types of weapons and armor that she is proficient with. Her weapon determines how much damage she deals in combat, and her armor influences her armor class. But these calculations are covered in more detail in Step 9. Don't neglect essentials such as food and traveling gear. For more on the equipment available and how much it costs, see Chapter 6. Once you've spent your character's starting wealth, note the equipment she owns as well as any remaining gold pieces, silver pieces, or copper pieces she might still have. Record your character's weapon in the melee strikes and ranged strikes sections depending on the weapon, and the rest of her equipment and her money in the appropriate section on your character sheets, second page. You'll calculate specific numbers for her melee strikes AC and TAC in step 9. 9. Fill in the finishing details. Now add the following details to your character sheet on the appropriate lines. Age. Note your character's age. The description of your character's ancestry in Chapter 2 gives some guidance on the age ranges of members of that ancestry. Beyond that, you can play a character of whatever age you like. Your character's age is a major factor that shapes how she interacts with the world. There aren't any mechanical adjustments to your character for being particularly old, but you might want to take it into account when considering your starting ability scores and future advancement. For instance, an old and wise character might have a higher wisdom score, so you might want to make sure you put one of your free ability boosts in wisdom. Particularly young characters can change the tone of some of the game's threats, so it's recommended to play characters who are at least young adults. Alignment. Your character's alignment is an indicator of her current philosophy, behavior, or cosmic status in regard to her morality and personality tendencies. Her alignment can change in play as her beliefs change, and you realize that your character's actions reflect a different alignment than one recorded on your character sheet. In most cases, you can just change your character's alignment to match your new discoveries about your character and continue playing. If you play a paladin, though your character's alignment must be lawful good, see page 105, and if you play a cleric, her alignment must be one allowed for her deity, see page 70. Otherwise, your character loses some of her class abilities until she atones. There are 9 possible alignments in Pathfinder, as shown on the table. If your alignment has any components other than neutral, your character gains traits based on those alignment components. This might affect the way various spells, items, and creatures interact with your character. Your character's alignment is measured by 2 sets of opposed values: the axis of good and evil, and the axis of law and chaos. A character who isn't committed strongly to either side is neutral on that axis. Keep in mind that alignment is a complicated subject, and even acts that might be considered evil can be used for nefarious purposes, and vice versa. The GM is the final arbiter of questions about how specific actions might affect your character's alignment. Law and chaos. Your character is a lawful alignment if she values consistency, stability, and predictability over flexibility. Lawful characters have a set system in life, whether it's meticulously planning day-to-day activities, carefully following a set of official or unofficial laws, or strictly adhering to a code of honor. On the other hand, if she values flexibility, creativity, and spontaneity over consistency, she has a chaotic alignment. That doesn't mean she decides her life by choosing randomly with a roll of the dice. However, chaotic characters believe that lawful characters are too inflexible to judge each situation by its own merits and take advantage of opportunities, while lawful characters believe that chaotic characters are irresponsible and flighty. Many characters are in the middle, generally obeying the law or following a code of conduct in many situations, but bending the rules when the situation requires it. If your character is in the middle too, she is neutral on this axis. Good and evil. Your character has a good alignment if she considers the happiness of others above her own and works selflessly to assist others, even those who aren't her friends and family. She is also good if she values protecting others from harm, even when it puts her in danger. She has an evil alignment if she is willing to victimize others for her own selfish gain, and it's even more likely that she's evil if she enjoys inflicting harm or actively seeks to harm others. If your character falls somewhere in the middle, she's likely neutral on this axis. Armor class, AC, and TAC. Your character has two values to represent how difficult she is to strike in combat. These are her armor class, AC, and her touch armor class, TAC. Most attacks will be made against your character's AC, while those that need only to touch her to be effective are made against her TAC. To calculate her AC, add 10 plus her dexterity modifier, up to her armor's dexterity modifier cap, plus her proficiency modifier with her armor, plus her armor's item bonus to AC, and any other bonuses and penalties that always apply. To calculate her TAC, add 10 plus her dexterity modifier, up to her armor's dexterity modifier cap, plus her proficiency modifier with her armor, plus her armor's item bonus to TAC, and other bonuses and penalties that always apply. Spells or abilities that give your character a bonus or penalty to AC also give an equal bonus or penalty to TAC, unless otherwise stated. Bulk. Your character's maximum bulk determines how much weight she can comfortably carry. If she is carrying a total amount of bulk that equals or exceeds 5 plus her strength modifier, she is encumbered. She cannot carry a total amount of bulk that exceeds 10 plus her strength modifier. Your character's current bulk is equal to the sum of all her items. Keep in mind that every 10 light items make up 1 bulk. For more about bulk, see page 175. Deity. Note the deity your character worships, if any. Clerics and paladins must worship a deity. See page 288 for more about Pathfinder's deities. Gender. Note your character's gender if applicable. Characters of all genders are equally likely to become adventurers. Hero points. Your character usually begins each game session with 1 hero point, and can gain additional hero points throughout the course of the game for undertaking helpful tasks for the group or performing heroic deeds during her adventures. Your character can use hero points to gain certain benefits, such as staving off death, re-rolling a d20, and the like. See page 300 for more about hero points. Melee strikes and ranged strikes. Next, where you've noted your character's melee and ranged weapons, calculate her modifiers to strikes with those weapons and how much damage her strikes deal. For modifiers to melee strikes, add your character's proficiency modifier with her weapon, plus her strength modifier, unless a weapon's entry says otherwise, plus any item bonus from the weapon, and any other bonuses and penalties that always apply. To the right of these lines, note how much damage her melee strikes deal. This equals your character's weapon damage dice plus her strength modifier. For modifiers to ranged strikes, add your character's proficiency modifier with her weapon plus her dexterity modifier, plus any item bonus from her weapon and any other bonuses and penalties that always apply. To the right of these lines, note how much damage her strikes deal. For most ranged weapons, this is equal to your character's weapon damage dice. If the weapon has the thrown trait, also add her strength modifier. If it has the propulsive trait, instead add half her strength modifier. Perception. Your character's perception modifier measures how alert she is. This number is equal to her proficiency modifier in perception plus her wisdom modifier. For more about perception, see page 301. Resonance points. Your character has a number of resonance points, which allow her to use magic items. Your character's total resonance points are equal to her charisma modifier plus her level. On the second page, write your character's charisma modifier and level in the appropriate fields. Her resonance point total goes to the fields marked maximum and current. For more on resonance points, see page 376. Saving throws. From time to time, your character may need to determine whether she can avoid or shake off an effect or spell. When this happens, the GM will ask you to attempt a fortitude, reflex, or will saving throw, depending on the situation. For each kind of saving throw, add your character's fortitude, reflex, or will proficiency modifier, as appropriate, plus the ability modifier associated with that kind of saving throw. Plus add any modifiers, bonuses, or penalties from abilities, feats, or items that always apply. Then record this number on the line for that saving throw. For fortitude saving throws, use your character's constitution modifier. For reflex saving throws, use your character's dexterity modifier. For will saving throws, use your character's wisdom modifier. This content was made possible by the generous support of patrons and travelers like you. Thank you.